Hey friends, you know that feeling when your beats sound stiff and lifeless, almost too perfect, more robot than human? Here's what's happening. Most producers quantize their beats to death. We get so caught up in the precision of making music with machines that we forget the magic happens in the balance between mechanical perfection and human imperfection. Today, I'm showing you how Ableton's Groove Pool can be the difference between music that just plays and music that lives and breathes, music that gets you nodding your head, moving your feet and pulling you onto the dance floor. We'll explore the groove pool controls, how to create our own grooves, and I'll show you my technique for applying different grooves to individual drum sounds within a drum rack. We're walking through this step by step, and by the end you'll hear exactly how adding just a little groove transforms a rhythm from sounding perfectly wrong to perfectly right. Master this and you'll have the secret weapon that sets your music apart in a world of lifeless quantized beats. So let's get started, and let's begin with an example of a drum rack on a MIDI track and programming in a hi-hat pattern from within that drum rack. So let's choose the closed hi-hat here and let's program a fast 16th note closed hi-hat pattern. Nice and simple. Okay, let's now head over to Ableton Live's library and to the Groove tab, and let's now choose a groove or swing template from within our groove pool over here to bring some life to our house drums and to this hi-hat pattern. Let's choose today Logic 16th note swing, which is going to work perfectly with our fast 16th note closed hi-hat pattern. More on that in a moment. And let's say that we break this down just in a very brief way, that if we look at the Logic 16th note swings here, we've got a numbering system of 51 all the way up to 74. That's our range of the different Logic 16th note swings that we can choose from. And if we click on the 51, and we click on the 74, we can kind of hear quite fast that there's a range of how much swing is being applied between 51 and 74. 74 heavily swung and 51 close to straight, almost not swung at all. So let's choose from within that range of different 16th note Logic swings, 57 for example, drag that down and drop it into our groove pool. What we want to understand is kind of what the different sections of the groove pool mean, the different controls and how we can use them. So starting with the very first little box that's checked, that's yellow over here on the swing that we've added. I love this feature and I think it arrived from memory around about when 12 did. What it means is if we have more than one groove or swing template down here in our groove pool, it's a great way to avoid any confusion happening by knowing, and we often do have more than one groove down here or swing because we might be doing a comparison between all of those and a shootout, A, B, this one, which one am I using? By having this little box that's checked here, it means that every time we open up a new clip or new track in the future, new MIDI clip, new audio, Ableton's making the focus that that will be the groove that's going to show up in the clip envelope groove pool section, avoiding, like I said, confusion where previously we may not know which one we're ending up using. So if that's checked, that's going to be the groove that's going to be in focus every time we open a new clip. So moving on from that, we see a bass. We've chosen the 16th note swing here and our bass is matching that. If we wish to manually change that, we can click in there and do that. And then right next door, we have quantization, and the quantize and bass are linked together. So think about that I've programmed my closed hi-hat with the pencil tool, so there's no need for any quantization to be applied here. Everything is perfectly accurate and straight at the moment. But if you played your drums in by hand or your MIDI by hand and recorded it, or you're working with some audio that isn't quantized, you can use the quantize down here in the groove pool to tighten that performance up before you add your groove. And because we've got the 16th note as the bass, if we add any quantization, it's going to be moving that to the nearest 16th. So that explains what the bass and the quantization are doing over here. Then we come to timing, and timing effectively is great. I love this feature. It's allowing us to choose this groove or swing template, and how much of that are we going to apply to our closed hi-hats. In this case, we can dial that in to taste. Great. Random next door to the timing is going to add a bit of randomization to that timing if we wish. So a little bit of interest, add large amounts or small amounts to really vary up the timing of our template or groove that we are applying to our MIDI or audio. And then to the right, we've also got velocity, and this can again be scaled. This particular Logic 16th note swing already has velocity as part of it. We can go positive values, so adding soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard to our pattern in a positive direction. And Ableton, being Ableton, has also given us the option to flip that on its head and go in the reverse direction. So instead of soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, we get hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, soft. Really cool feature. And then down the very bottom here, we've got this global amount at 100%, and this is going to scale all of the different values you have here. So if you adjust all of the different controls in the groove pool, that's effectively scaling that however much you want, again, to apply all of those to whatever you're working on. And Ableton, being Ableton, again, they've allowed us to take that above 100% to 130% if we wish. So let's get started here by making a couple of examples so we can kind of hear this in action. So in our new clip down here, let's say that in our top clip, we leave it with no groove at all. And in our brand new clip down here, we're going to choose our swing pattern, our groove template from over here. Let's hit play. And what I really love about this is we can dial all of this in real time, right? So we can be listening out to what's going on and choose our preferences of that in real time. So we can hit play over here and now start playing around a bit. So if we zero this out as a little feature as well, which I like to use a lot, I know that if I add any grooves or swings down in here and I zero out the timing, they're actually back to straight. So you can actually add different grooves in here and you can zero them out. So effectively they're there, and they're also showing down here in the clip envelopes in the groove, but they're not doing anything until that goes above 0%, just to point that out. So it's a nice little feature. Now we can dial it in. So maybe we just want sort of 80% of it, somewhere around there. What happens if we randomize that timing? Let's go quite extreme so you can hear it. Let's maybe dial that back a little bit. Just a very subtle amount. And then with the velocity, so we've got that soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard, or hard, soft, hard, soft. So let's say that I now give you an example where I kind of apply this. So let's say, first of all, we kind of we could actually duplicate that down in here. So we've got two versions of it. That's kind of a little idea that just came to my mind. And then I used Command D to do that. And then with the top one, I'm going to put that back to its kind of default settings here. Right. And then what we can do here, make sure we've got our original one selected here. And what we can start doing, just so you can see what's going to happen, is committing that groove, which we do with this little arrow over here. So right now it's selected in here, but it's not finally committed to this group of closed hi-hats. But if we click that, we've committed it. And what we see is the swing being applied, this long, short, long, short, long, short feeling that's going on. That's what swing is when you're drumming it on a real drum kit or applying it here in our DAW. It's this long, short, long, short. And we can see with our velocity that we got the soft, hard, soft, hard, soft, hard. And it's all nice and evenly balanced. 100% timing meant that it's the same all the way through the clip, the long, short. Velocity means that that was also the same, and it's applied, as I said, soft, hard, soft, hard. So let's say that we undo that, and now we choose our second version where I randomize the timing a little. Let's make it a little bit more extreme. and I've changed the velocity to the reverse direction and the timing over here, and let's commit that. And now we see we've got something quite different. So we've got the reverse of the velocity, and we can see little gaps appearing. And with the randomization of that timing, you know, notes are now like landing in different places, early, late. This one's early. So not only do we have the long, short, but we now have a real humanization of the timing of all of those, and that's because of that randomization. So I love all of that, and I love how we can dial it in real time, right? Which is really fantastic because you can be listening out and hearing what's going on. So let's get back on track here. We're going to get rid of that clip. That was just to demonstrate. We're going to tidy up the groove pool, come back to what we have here. And now we're going to look at the next situation that might happen sometimes. We're going to pop into here and we're going to add a kick. It's the nice simple 4 on the floor kick and a clap as well. And we've got the basics of a house beat. Now, right now, we don't have a groove applied, but if we pop down here and apply it, we now got this situation where maybe we only want to swing the hi-hats and add our groove pool to it. But actually, in a drum rack, we might not know how to do that because right now that groove is going to be applied to the kick, the clap, and the hi-hats, right? Now we might like that, and that might be what we're aiming for, but we might be wanting, as I said, to split it all up and say the hi-hats has this amount of groove and the clap has this amount of groove, and so on and so forth. So one of the ways we can handle that and manage that is to open up the drum rack, and we can click on, for example, the closed hi-hats. Let's say we want to add groove to those, and we could right-click our mouse and extract the chain. That's going to take that closed hi-hat out of the drum rack. Or we can click on it and drag and drop it over to an empty space like so. And we now have the closed hi-hats isolated on their own. I'm just going to do that a slightly different way. So I'm going to do it by option dragging it. So I'm going to leave it in the drum rack and put it over here so I can show you my next idea. So first up, now we can label this hi-hat. And we can look at the pattern over here. And on our pattern over here, we can have our groove applied, right? And then within our drum rack, we can come over here. We can zero the closed hi-hats out there, mute them so we don't hear them. And here we're going to turn the groove to none, right? So now we've got our hi-hat isolated with the groove applied to it and our kick and clap straight. And now on our hi-hats, we can come down here and we can play around with all those good things we just looked at. And dial that all into taste. So that's one option. We've got extracting chains or dragging it out of the rack. If you want to keep everything still together and intact in the rack, there is another method which I'd like to show you, and that involves setting up a new MIDI track next door to the drum rack, like so. And then what we're going to do in this situation is we're going to come down here to the ins and outs of this new MIDI track. I'm going to say MIDI to our drum kit, so the house drums, and then directly below it, we're going to choose the closed hi-hat from the second drop-down box. And now what we can do is we're going to copy our MIDI pattern across over onto that track. And again, we're going to make sure our closed hi-hat zeroed out, which it already is, and that we've got no groove selected here. We're looking good. And then on this new MIDI track, now what we're going to do, because we've copied the MIDI over, well, actually that's because I've grayed it out. It's kind of grayed out. So let's unmute it. And let's mute our kick and clap MIDI notes because we're not going to be using those. So we're just revealing the original hi-hat MIDI notes, and we're going to move those back up because we don't want them low in pitch. Let's put them on C3 so they're back to the original pitch of those closed hi-hats. And now once again over here, we can add our swing to the closed hi-hats, and they're still all within the drum rack, right? So the difference being that this closed hi-hat pattern is now going to play with swing, but it's still all part of the whole overall drum rack rather than extracting it. So if I hit play on the hi-hat, you can see they're playing here, as is the kick and clap, but we're independently able to again work using our swing and groove template. So a couple of nice ways there to be able to work with sounds in a drum rack without needing or being caught with the drum rack having to share all the same swing and groove patterns. Either extract or drag and drop your sounds out of the rack, or this nice little workflow where they stay all in the same rack, but we can apply separate grooves and swings. Love that feature. So what about if we're working with audio as an example? So over here, I have a shaker loop, which is deliberately very, very straight. It has no real swing applied. Let's have a listen to that. Let's also stop our drums over here. Okay, so in audio, similar to MIDI, we come down over into the clip envelope properties over here, and we can go in and we can choose our groove that we have from within the groove pool and start applying it. There is one thing that you need if you're going to be working with audio and you're applying swing, you need to have on for it to work, and that is warp. If you're trying to use a swing or groove in the groove pool on audio and it's unwarped, you will not be successful. So let's say this shaker deliberately chosen in audio, it's quite straight. It could do with a bit of swing. We've got warping on by default. We can now go in to the clip envelope properties over here and choose our groove from the groove pool, hit play. And again, we can start completely changing our shakers. So they've got a little bit of groove, and these shakers are quite straight, as I said already, so they benefit nicely from this. But if we wanted, in this case, we could actually use the quantization to tighten things up before applying any of the swing. So you can hear that. So now this is in action. Quantization is moving 100%, all of these little hits here, bang on the nearest 16th, and now we could apply our swing afterwards. So that shows you how this combination works. And completely, we can take that shaker loop to a whole new territory. Nice. So working with it in audio. So now let's work towards my last example here, which is where we basically, we've got all these beautiful options over here in Ableton Live in this groove pool and groove templates as swing and groove. But let's say we want to make our own, and maybe we've got a great record collection or favorite tracks that have amazing groove and swing to them, and we'd like to grab a little bit of that and apply it to our own music. Well, over here, I've got my own sort of like couple of different loops here of some hi-hats. Okay, and what we want to do is take that hi-hat loop and its feeling. Let's have a listen to this one. And then the second one. So similarly to the shaker, I chose that as it didn't have a lot of swing. These loops have some interesting feeling, vibe, swing and groove to them. So let's say I was choosing this hi-hat 2 here, and I wanted to extract from it its swing and groove. I can right click on that file to bring up a little menu, and what I'm going to do is to choose from that menu, extract the groove. And once that process is done, we can see over here, we've now got that groove over in our groove pool. Happy days. And now, as I've walked you through all the groove pool controls, you know how they all work. We can now customize that. And we can also go and save that into our library and make it one of our favorite grooves that we want to be able to choose over and over and add to our music. So if we hit the little save icon here, it ends up over here in our grooves, saved into there in our user library. And also if we go back into our groove template and we navigate our way to the letter H, you know, it's going to appear in this list here as a groove that we can now choose from within our groove pool. So really nice feature. And now we can come over, let's say, to our shaker here in audio, or our MIDI over here, doesn't really matter. And now we could go, let's say, to our last hi-hat over here that's working inside the drum rack, and choose our brand new groove and apply that to that. And then we can customize that again if we like. Amazing stuff. So that's how you can take a custom groove from a recording and add it into the groove pool, and as I said, start building your own little library of your own grooves and swings and all that good sort of stuff. So finally, just don't think that that only then applies to, you know, drum sounds, which we've been mainly focused on today. We could also do something similar where we extract from any other musical sound or instrument our favorite groove and swing element that we like about it. In this case, I've got a bass line, sounds like this. So similarly, what we're going to do is right click on that, and we're going to choose to extract the grooves. Happy days. So here it is over in the groove pool. Similarly, again, we can click and we can save that into our library. You can also name these, by the way, and all those good things. So if you want to give it its own custom name, and what we could now do is create a brand new MIDI track, and we could go and grab ourselves a bass instrument, something that I've bookmarked previously from Ableton Live. Let's say we just take the Juno 106 bass, drop it over here on this MIDI track. And now what we can do is another little trick that I want to show you is, so we've extracted the groove and the swing of that audio bass line that I had, that loop of bass. We've got it over here in the groove pool. Well, all of these grooves and swings, these groove templates, they're also MIDI clips. So I could actually just click on the bass clip over there, the groove, and bring it in, drag it over here, and actually drop it onto my 106 bass instrument. And there is my pattern that I extracted that groove and swing. And let's say maybe we move it up one octave here, and now we hit play on our 106. And you get the idea. So now you can go and customize that as a starting point for a whole new bass line. It's got all the beautiful velocity that we extracted from that audio loop, and all the different notes and the timing of those notes and the swing and groove of those notes. So there we are. That is all about the groove pool and Ableton Live's groove, swing and groove templates, how we can use them in our music, how they can bring all this life and breathing, living and breathing to our music, and the difference between quantized and static music and music that feels alive. Now you know how to use them and apply them, and even make your own, and also to work around different situations where you might want to use something like a drum rack, but you want to have quite a common situation. That is, I like to do my house beats where I might have one swing or groove on a clap that's going to be different to my hi-hats, and then my kick is straight. And if you're doing garage or drum and bass or break beats and jungle, that's something you're going to come across an awful lot. So I hope, as always, you've found this tutorial super interesting, beneficial. You've learned plenty of things as we've gone along the way. I'll be back soon with another tutorial, all things Ableton Live and electronic music. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to push all those buttons. You know the ones: like, comment, subscribe. Helps the channel an awful lot. I'll see you very soon. And just a quick one, in this video, I've shown you the basics of one of many creative workflows and Ableton Live workflows. In my coaching sessions, I work with artists, DJs, producers, performers. We dive deeper into Ableton Live and sound design, and we tailor things to your specific situation. So if you want to accelerate your progress and have some personal guidance, you can book a free coaching call with me using the link down below in the video description. On that note, ladies and gents, take care of yourself, keep on creating, and I'll catch you very soon. Bye for now. Ciao.